Good afternoon, and welcome to the Joint General Session meeting of the ISO Board of Governors and WEM Governing Body. Please note that today's event is being recorded, and currently all attendees have entered in a listen-only mode. There will be opportunity for public comment throughout today's call, and you will all be given instructions on how to enter the public comment queue at those times. With that, I'd now like to formally begin today's meeting and turn things over to Roger Collinton. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Silas. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the joint ISO Board of Governors and WEM Governing Body General Session meeting. Let me start out with a roll call so that we can officially start the meeting. And I'll start with you, Chair Severin. Chair Borenstein. Sorry.
Chair Severin is here.
Chair Severin. Okay. And Member Campbell.
Here.
Member Decker.
Here.
Vice Chair Edo.
Here.
Governor Galitova. Chair Konzioka. Rob, can you hear us? Oh, you are muted. Yeah. I hear you now.
All right.
Governor Leslie.
Here.
Member Prescott.
Here.
Governor Shorey.
Here.
And Vice Chair Wagner.
Here.
Thank you, governors and board members. We are have a full complement and a quorum, and we can proceed. Let me note for the record that we have a public comment process that if we have somebody in the room, which I believe today we do not, they can submit a card for public comment. And for those online, Silas, the operator for the meeting, will direct virtual attendees to raise their hand when we seek public comment. And so with that, let me turn it over to our chairs for their agenda item number one and for their welcome. Chair Borenstein, or also known as Chair Severin.
Thank you, Comrade Roger. Welcome to everyone to the joint meeting of the ISO Board of Governors and the WEM governing body. We have an interesting agenda today with a couple of important topics. But the main thing I want to highlight is this is the last in-person meeting that we will have with John Prescott. John actually is the only member of the governing body who predates me, I think. So making it clear that I've been around a while, and John has too. And I just want to say how much I have appreciated our joint meetings, and before that, our joint dinners, and ability to get to know you and all of your very, very valuable comments and contributions, and that we are going to really miss you. And I hope that we will get more opportunities to interact.
Something.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Severin. I appreciate that. It's, you know, it's bittersweet. We have term limits for a reason. It's probably time for me to move on. I feel good that it's left in very good hands. When I look at the staff out there and you all sitting up here, you know, I have every expectation that the goals will be met well. So I'm comfortable with that. But thank you and good luck. And end of report.
And I just want to say, this is true of the Board of Governors, but actually the governing body will have one more meeting with John. So they get to do their own goodbye at another time. Rob, over to you.
Thank you. I too would like to welcome everyone to our May joint meeting. As noted, and you'll hear more about this, is regarding public comments. Should there be any that warrant contribution, they are welcome and appreciated. As Chair Borenstein just noted, we will have an opportunity at our June meeting to address John's last meetings. And he initially had planned for only one more meeting, but as a result of the special meeting being called, he has two more meetings. Regarding today's meeting, though, we're going to hear about the progress being made on the transition from the current governing body structure of governance to a regional organization structure. The Pathway Governance Initiative has made noteworthy progress since our last meeting in March, and I think we can all hear the drumbeat of change getting louder. We've had the also the opportunity to hear the update on the roadmap development and policy catalog, along with the effectiveness of the process improvements that were enacted last year. So with that concludes my opening remarks, and I turn the meeting back over to Corporate Secretary Roger Collington.
Thank you, Chair Kanzioka. We have Mark Rothleader here to provide some brief opening remarks on behalf of Elliott Mainzer, our CEO.
Great. Thanks, Roger. And I just want to welcome Chair Bornstein, Chair Kanzioka, and the governing body members, as well as the board, governing body members and the governors to today's meeting. Today, in addition to the Pathways efforts, which we continue to support and engage in, today you're going to hear some briefing on the policy catalog and roadmap. The ISO staff have been collaborating with stakeholders to reevaluate, prioritize, and sequence the roadmap. We recognize that the EDAM congestion allocation that we were intending to bring for decision today in joint session is taking resources away from the original plan that we went into the roadmap for the year. While we were targeting this meeting for a decision on the congestion allocation, based on the last round of comments, we recognized that it was appropriate to take just a bit more time. And now we will be noticing a special joint governing body board meeting for June 19th to take up the EDAM congestion allocation topic for decision at that point. Nonetheless, today you will hear the results of the policy catalog work, roadmap assessment to set the course for other important initiatives. I would like to thank the staff and special thanks to stakeholders for their thoughtful engagement and response to the prioritization survey in the policy catalog and road mapping effort. And really more importantly, to their continued attention and time they put into all the initiatives. So really want to thank our stakeholders for that. I will refrain from offering Mr. Prescott our goodbyes. We'll do that in the June meeting, and thank you for your service and being there for our joint decision in the special joint session. So with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Back to me on that. So thank you, Mark, and I'm going to do the same, and I'll just say it ain't so at this point. So John, in my mind, doesn't leave until later. So at this point, we have an opportunity for general public comment, and general public comment is for items that are not listed on today's agenda. Silas, can you check to see if there is anybody on the line that would like to make a general public comment?
If you would like to speak under general public comment, you can please press the raise hand icon at the bottom center of your Zoom screen. If you are dialed in through the phone only line, you can please press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the comment queue. At this time, there are no hands up in the comment queue.
Thank you, Silas. Our next order of business is agenda item number 2, which is our decision on the March 26, 2025 joint general session minutes. And if I can have a motion to approve those minutes, please.
Moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, board members and governing body members. The motion passes. Our next item is agenda item number 3, which is the Formation Committee update for the Westwide Governance Pathways Initiative. And to introduce the topic is online, I believe, is Stacy Crowley, our Vice President of External Affairs. Stacy?
Thank you, Roger. Good afternoon, members of the Western Energy Markets Governing Body and ISO Board of Governors. Stacy Crowley, the Vice President of External Affairs, and I'm here to quickly introduce Kathleen Stacks and Jim Shetler, who are members of the Westwide Governance Pathways Initiative Launch Committee and have updates to share on the work of the Formation Committee, which is a subset of the Launch Committee looking to advance the development of a regional organization for energy markets in the West. So I just want to thank them for their tireless work, the whole group, which is a broad set of stakeholders volunteering their time to develop this. And I just want to thank Kathleen and Jim, but the entire membership of that group. And I'll turn it over to Kathleen and Jim to provide an update. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy, and good afternoon. All governors and governing body members. We're pleased to be back here. And we will just chime in too. We have really appreciated Member Prescott's participation on the formation committee as a liaison. He's been an extremely valuable part of the conversation, and we're very grateful for him sharing some of his remaining time with our group as we've worked through some of our work on the formation committee. So with that, Jim and I are going to kind of split up some of this and wanted to just provide an update to you all on the work that we've been doing over the last few months. Just as a reminder, the formation committee and the launch committee as a whole we're not engaging in any legislative work or lobbying work. So just want to make sure we're trying to be very clear about that distinction. And then we are also just related to that, the work that we're doing is really the sort of pre-implementation work while the legislative session is going on, so that if and when we have a bill that is passed by the legislature and signed by the governor, we are prepared to fully implement the new regional organization and move forward with those recommendations. So just from a kind of a reminder of where we've been and where we're going with the work of the formation committee. So next slide, please. We're going to cover just a couple of items for today. We have a final formation board proposal that the launch committee has adopted. We've conducted a sector development workshop that we can talk a little bit about. And we'll talk about next steps, which include a lot of the budget work that we've been, that Jim has really been leading on, sort of what do we anticipate the work that we have ahead of us to cost as we're headed into the regional organization. Next slide. So the formation board proposal was really came out of a recognition as we were developing we're sort of looking at the documents that we need to file with the IRS to incorporate the new regional organization. We need to identify an initial set of board members in those documents. Recognize we wanted to get these documents filed before we really had the opportunity to seat an official board. This sort of put us in a conundrum that we needed to kind of solve for kind of an interim board situation. So our recommendation was to use the formation committee as the formation board that would, and the formation board would have very limited duties, really mostly serving as just the names on those incorporation documents, but that the formation committee would continue in its role as developing the documents and the procedures, and then the launch committee would ultimately be the decision maker until we get to the point where we actually seat new independent permanent board members. So the time frame that we're kind of thinking about, our goal at this point is to incorporate the new regional organization likely in January of 2026, and then have a goal of seating that initial independent set of board members in July of 2026. It would be a relatively short time frame. Again, this would be a group that really doesn't have any decision-making authority, and ultimately, because the RO will not yet have any authority over any market operations, that will still be with the CAISO. There's not any real major decision making that the body can even do. So that was ultimately what we landed on as a recommendation. We proposed this to stakeholders. We got one set of comments. Next slide, please. This kind of covers our comments. Just with some recommendations about having open board meetings, providing a bit more detail about the duration of service and the accountability and authority of this formation board. making sure that these different entities that will be existing have very clear roles and responsibilities. And then there was a suggestion to add another member to the formation committee from the Pacific Northwest. We believe that our final proposal adopting this incorporates most of these things. We're not at this point changing the formation committee because it is less about sector representation. And again, the formation committee doesn't have any decision-making authority. All of that still rests with the launch committee, which does still have all of the diverse sector and geographic representation that we've had along the way. So that is the sort of the main thing that we've made an official decision on from the formation committee. We'll go to the next slide. I'll talk a little bit about the stakeholder sector workshop. We hosted a workshop at our public meeting at the end of April to help some of our new sectors kind of figure out what they need to do to become functioning sectors when we get the RO off the ground. Recognizing that the first role of the sectors that we've recommended to be part of this process will be to serve on a nominating committee to choose the initial permanent board members, likely next summer. So we had a long presentation. We had a lot of really great speakers, many of whom are very active in the Regional Issues Forum and shared their experience serving as sector representatives, both on the RIF and as nominating committee representatives. And so now we're all kind of working with our sectors to make sure they are ready to get off the ground. Next slide. So we want to make sure that we have those sectors engaged, that they can identify representatives to serve on that nominating committee to choose that initial set of board members, which will need to happen really November, December of this year. So next slide, please. So looking forward, we have a handful of additional items that we're spending our time on. I'm going to let Jim speak at this point to some of the items that are on this list since he's been kind of leading some of that work.
Thanks, Kathleen, and good afternoon to the governing body and Board of Governors. Thank you for allowing us a chance to update you. So looking at the budget for creating the regional organization, we spent most of the last few months walking through the details of what we think a schedule should be for that. And you've heard much of this, but we're looking at actual fully functional tariff-funded regional organization in place by January 1st of 2028. I know that sounds like it's a ways out, but we wanted to make sure we could cover all the issues that needed to be addressed between now and then. We don't want to do too much until legislation is passed later this year. As Kathleen mentioned, we would then get into selecting a board, standing up a board, and some minimal staffing of the RO, such that we have an independent organization that can be a counterparty to the ISO in the discussions around tariff development and a service agreement between the RO and the ISO to provide the oversight functions for the new organization. Based on that, what we're looking at is roughly a $7 million budget that we think would be necessary between now and January 1st of 28. We have enough funding in place to support our efforts through October, November of this year, at which point we will need additional funding. We have done outreach and were initially awarded a DOE grant. Not sure that's still available to us. As everybody knows, federal funding is under a lot of scrutiny right now. And then the other source of revenue between now and January 1st of 28 will be contributions from the various participants in the West. And so we are gearing up for that effort. Relative to the nominating committee procedure, we've been going through and looking at the details of that. as Kathleen mentioned, spending some time educating the various sectors on what it means to be a nominating committee participant. We've also had some discussion on who is it that actually approves that initial board when it gets selected by the nominating committee. And our original proposal actually had the formation committee doing that. After more discussion, we decided that it probably made sense to have the launch committee do that, since it represents a broader spectrum of the stakeholders throughout the West. And then the initial RO board, when we'd been talking about how we would go through selection process for the RO board, we are looking at making use of a placement firm to do that. We're having some initial outreach around that with different consulting firms to get some ideas on how we might want to approach that. Our intent would be to go ahead and do the initial selection for all 7 of the proposed seats on the RO board, but likely not seat all 7 initially, and would likely do an initial seating of 5 to start the process, and the interface with the ISO, with the full seating being completed by January 1st of 28. Then we are also in the process of drafting the corporate documents for incorporation of this entity as a 501c3. As our recommendation outlined, our intent is to do that as a Delaware corporation. We are in the process as a formation committee of starting to review some drafts on that, and we will be taking those to the launch committee and eventually going public to the stakeholder community to get feedback on that later this summer. And then I think I might turn over, Kathleen, stakeholder process refinements. You've been a little closer to that than I have.
You bet. Thanks, Jim. This is really when we had finished our when we put out our proposal at the end of back in November of last year, we there was still some work to be done on the stakeholder process, and so we have been continuing to try to address some of our unresolved issues, and then again working very closely with the RIF, who is exploring how they might incorporate some of our recommendations into the RIF process when it makes sense for the way the RIF functions today. So regardless of what happens with the new regional organization, if there are pieces of the Pathways Initiative proposal that make sense for the RIF, for stakeholder improvements, those are things that they're pursuing. So we are working very closely with the RIF to make sure that our work is very complementary. So all of that is ongoing as well. And as Jim mentioned, we're going to have, we continue to have opportunities for stakeholder input into each one of the draft documents that we're putting out. So for those things that are on this list that we haven't shared with the public yet, we will be once they are ready. So again, many of these will be coming out over the coming months. And we'll have opportunities for stakeholder input, both in our public meetings and for many of them, some written comment opportunities as well. Our next stakeholder meeting is the end of this month on May 30th, so next Friday. And with that, we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Jim. Are there any questions from the governing body or the board? Severin?
Yeah, Jim, you said something that maybe it just flew by quickly and I didn't understand it. I thought I heard you say you're interviewing for all 7, but only seating 5.
Yes.
I'm not sure what that means. And so could you
just that we would, as long as we're going through the process, we'd like to go ahead and see if we can identify 7 full members. We recognize that there is a opportunity for some of the existing governing body members who may be interested to apply. And one of the things we thought about is if some are selected, whether we would seat all those initially or maybe allow them to stay on the governing body through end of its requirements before they got seated on the RO board.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? I don't see any in the room. Rob, you don't have a hand up, so just making sure I don't forget you. Or you do have a hand up, so apparently I'm colorblind on that.
No, Roger, I put my hand up afterwards. First of all, I just want to thank Kathleen and Jim for coming to our meeting today and sharing this update and providing this new information and level of detail. It certainly provides some interesting things to think about. You know, I'll probably provide some feedback through Andy and through John on some of the remarks that you just made that got me thinking, okay, here's another level of detail. You may have already addressed it. You may have already thought it through, but I think it's worthwhile to bring to your attention for deliberations. So this has been helpful, and I think a lot of work that is being done, and we really do look forward to the next update on see how things are progressing and where we are. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks also to Andy and John for their input, and Governor Shorey as well for providing continued input and the dialogue between the governing bodies. We're really grateful for that dialogue.
Absolutely, it's very valuable input. And then maybe one passing comment, Mr. Prescott, thank you for your service in the industry. And, retirement's not all it's cracked up to be. So there might be something else for you to do down the road.
And look who's talking.
Well, John, you do have that extra meeting to look forward to, so that'll help with the financial burden. 2 extra meetings, okay. So next, Silas, can you check if there's public comment? Oh, I'm sorry, did you have?
But just a quick question, given that the governing body is going to be meeting in Reno in June, will we get another update from you guys at that point? Another briefing?
We can, if you guys want. I think our thought was, if we have new information to share, then we're certainly wanting to come and share that with you. If there's not a whole lot going on, we didn't want to, take up too much of your time. So if there's something that you'd like to, I'll have to think through what we got maybe ready for June. But we can certainly coordinate on that.
Okay.
As we get closer.
Maybe give it a think. I'd leave it at give it a think.
Yeah, happy to. If there's something that you guys like to come and spend more time on, we're happy to do that.
Great, thank you. So let me just double check. Any more comments in the room? Looks like we are good. So Silas, if you can check online to see if we have any public comments for Kathleen or Jim.
If you would like to make a public comment, you can please press the raise hand icon at the bottom center of your Zoom screen, or #2 if you are dialed in through the phone only line. We do have one hand up in the queue. Rick, you have been sent the prompt to unmute yourself. You can please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you. This is Rick Benitez, BNGC consultant for a couple of market participants. Just have a quick question. I know you guys mentioned 7 board members would be looked at and initially 5, but I'm not sure if I misheard or my audio cut out. When would the additional 2 then be looked at to be seated? Is there like a timeline for that eventually, or?
Yeah, our initial thinking is that we would seat at least the 5 to start with in middle of next year, and then be looking to seat the other 2 no later than January of 28.
To January 28, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And the other question was in regards to the funding, especially with the DOE and all the changes. I know that's not something we all want to talk in our industry, especially in the last 6 months to a year. Actually, 6 months would really be more effective. do we know when is that cutoff to know if that's going to affect the grants, and be able to come back to the members or the stakeholders to say, hey, yes, yay or nay, and then what's the solution to that gap in funding?
So maybe I'll kick it off, and Kathleen, if you want to weigh in as well. What we have told stakeholders to date is that we continue to pursue and try to find out if the grant money is available, but we're not assuming that it is, and that for planning purposes, that we start our outreach for funding donations, we are assuming we have to go after the total amount of money. And if at some point the grant comes through, that's fine, but it's not something we're planning or counting on right this minute.
And what about member states, possibly, through the legislatures or the PUCs, or that combination of, member stakeholders or member states within the
So
RI?
we're not, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay, sir. James, no worries, sir.
We're not restricting anything at this time. We'll be working with our various stakeholders. We do have state representation as part of the launch committee. And certainly we will be working with them and trying to pursue whether there's opportunities there as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chiller. Appreciate your information. And Kathleen, everybody, thank you for all the presentations. Very informative, and I'm looking forward to the new process. Hopefully, I've been sitting in a couple of the working groups, and I'm in the East Coast myself, so I'm a little bit of always late, but I'm always trying to be appraised of what's going on. It's very exciting, at the same time, uncertainty. But with that comes the opportunity. With Peter Parker, great responsibility with whatever that thing is. Responsibility comes great power comes great responsibility. So I don't envy you all. So thank you all for your efforts, each and every one of you.
Thank you for your comments. Silas, any other comments online?
There are no further comments in the queue at this time.
Okay. With that, I think we can move on to our next agenda item, which is item number 4, our briefing on policy calendar, catalog, and roadmap. And to introduce the topic is Anna McKenna, our Vice President, Market Design and Analysis. Anna?
Thank you, Roger. Good afternoon, Chair Konzioka and Chair Borenstein, governing body members, as well as Board of Governors and members of the public. I have the pleasure of introducing Amelia Blanky, our Principal Economist and Director of Market Strategy and Governance. She will be speaking to you today about some work we've done this year in 2025 on our 2025 roadmap, policy roadmap. And it is really to address an issue, as Mark noted earlier this year. We took on an additional item that we had not anticipated having to do this year. And of course, it's put a little extra pressure on stakeholders and ourselves, of course, as well. We heard a lot of feedback from stakeholders for the need to resequence, if you wish, and take some time to allocate our time more effectively. I want to note also and give some kudos to my team and Amelia. Over the past couple of years, they've been doing a lot of work on policy road mapping and taking time to work with stakeholders, the Regional Issues Forum, to really continue to refine our process on planning with stakeholders on policy initiatives. This effort's not for 2026. This is for 2025 again. It's a readjustment, but we'll be coming soon to you again to talk about 2026 before the end of the year. So a pleasure for me to introduce Amelia. So with that, I will ask Amelia to take us away.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you, CAISO Board of Governors and WEM governing body members for your time and attention today. I also owe a thanks to the CAISO staff who have worked very hard on all of this issue, as well as to our stakeholders. Next slide, thank you. As you all will recall, we are on year 2 of what is a new catalog and roadmap process. Part of that process incorporates urgent requests. This year, as we did last year, we're incorporating an urgent request. Last year's was the ability to bid in over the soft offer cap. This year, as the governing body heard yesterday, we are looking into the congestion rent allocation within the expanded day-ahead market. When we took on that issue, we immediately shifted initiative schedules to accommodate. We received informal feedback from market participants that additional work was stretching stakeholder resources, especially in the context of asking stakeholders to take on additional roles in the ISO's process. We took advantage of our existing policy catalog and roadmap process to add a question to our survey. That survey is a normal part of the process. This was an additional question on the 2025 prioritization. And I'll just take a moment here to again highlight the feedback that we get from the Regional Issues Forum. They issued a report last week, which was a follow-up on their public meeting, and we were able to use the information that was presented in that public meeting also to inform our choices here. The redesign of the 2025 policy roadmap. Next, I'm 2 slides ahead of you, Christina. Thank you. There we go. Thank you. No, one more. Thank you. Back. Thanks. The redesign of the 2025 roadmap is an additional step in the process because we did not reserve time for the new initiative in the roadmap that we designed last year. As we look forward to the work that Anna spoke of looking at the 2026 to 2028 roadmap, we'll plan reserved time to ensure that we can address unforeseen policy issues, particularly those needed for the EDAM go live, which is the ISO's highest priority. And this reserves time for both the ISO and for stakeholders. Next slide, Christina. Thank you. The additional question that we asked gave stakeholders, it gave each organization up to 100 points to allocate across current initiatives. These are the overall results, but next slide, Christina. What we did is really break these down by sector. The sectors are listed here along with each of their highest priority and the total points allocated by that sector to the highest priority. If you skip to the next slide. This slide shows the allocation of points across each of the listed initiatives by sector. So, and just to take and I realize the font may be small for you, just to take the demand and distributed energy market integration, which received the largest number of points, most of the points there are shown in that dark blue color, came from the distributed energy sector. So, but not all of the points. So there is interest in that initiative also from other sectors. We're taking this allocation of points as a proxy really for the willingness of stakeholders to support and actively participate in initiatives. I'll highlight a couple that received less support. So for example, either the Assistance Energy Transfer Extension or the Gas Resource Management Working Group, which are shown there on the other end of the spectrum. For both of those, there are stakeholders who put some priority on those initiatives, and the ISO can focus work and time with working with those stakeholders. And second, where these initiatives are nearly complete, the ISO can work to really bring these to completion with less input from stakeholders. Next. Just to summarize the major changes, and I'll walk through the next slides, which show them in context of everything that we're working on for 2025. We revised the 2025 roadmap. Postponed initiatives are not dropped. These issues are being addressed and have a space in the 2026 to 2028 policy roadmap. Minor changes that are listed here reflect some of the changes in initiative timelines that have happened as of the mid-year 2025. And next. As you can see here, we have added a new initiative for the EDAM congestion rent allocation, congestion revenue allocation. And the other big change that is shown on this slide is for the greenhouse gas coordination. There, I'm very happy to report that for topic 3, we have been able to add additional metrics. Those have already been planned, and about half, and then for the remainder are going to be discussed as part of topic 2, which will come to you for a decision in Q4. Gas resource management also should come to you for a decision, or at least an informative update, in Q4. Next slide. One of the very biggest changes was the postponement of work on one of the 2 price formation enhancements tracks. That is the track on fast start pricing. And again, we're not dropping that, but we will consider it again in the 2026 to 2028 roadmap. Next slide. The other big change, and this is shown here, is a splitting out of the WEM assistance energy transfer renewal from the larger project, which is the WEM resource efficiency and valuation enhancements. You should expect to see that assistance energy transfer come to you for a decision in the Q3. Finally, I'll end on our next steps. We are planning to publish this revised 2025 policy roadmap tomorrow, if not today, and we'll work in June to update the schedules of our current policy initiatives to accommodate these roadmap changes. Most of them have already been updated as we speak. We will continue work on our standard 2026 to 2028 policy roadmap development. And that will, as I mentioned, include all of the postponed items from the revised 2025 roadmap. With that, I will stop it for any questions.
Any questions from the board or the governing body? Go ahead, Andy. Were you first?
You go first, Andy.
Thank you, Chair Borenstein. Thank you, Amelia, for the presentation. I just wanted to share some appreciation for the very deliberate and rigorous approach that CAISO took to rethinking the 2025 priorities. And I think it's great that y'all did go back out to stakeholders and check in with them, since their priorities may have also shifted relative to the time this roadmap was originally developed. I was interested if you would say there's any lessons learned in terms of this sort of this numerical survey type approach that you used, if that's something we'll expect to see in future iterations or some other version of that approach.
Thank you for the question. At least one lesson learned was that there was some misunderstanding among stakeholders in answering the survey. So if we do choose to use this particular method, which had some advantages, we'll need to do a better job in explaining the survey question and rolling that out to market participants.
Yes, thank you for this, and obviously for the thoughtful reprioritizing. But I do want to, and I have been sort of harping on this for the last few years about, and this is more a question for Anna and Mark than for Amelia, the there is this trade-off. I mean, pushing back initiatives is costly. Presumably there are initiatives because we think we should make a change or at least consider making a change. And the trade-off, of course, is carrying more personnel is costly too. Have we done a careful analysis of that trade-off? Although the congestion revenue allocation issue is a surprise issue, there's a sense in which there's always a surprise issue. And I always wonder if we're just not, we're being a little cheap on headcount, and it's ending up costing market participants in slower addressing. And I've never run a corporation, so I run a very small organization. And so I'm not sure exactly how one does that, but I'd like to be able to reassure the market participants that we're getting that right, or at least thinking carefully about getting that right.
No, your point's well taken, and I think, at least from our strategy, we look at this and try to maintain a certain amount of capability to absorb things that may come up within the roadmap. I guess the last couple of years, probably the roadmap has gotten pretty filled up, and so being able to keep that slack has been difficult. But I think to the discussion we just had, it's not just our staff, it's the stakeholders' time, and I think it's one thing balancing that resource mix internally. It's another thing when you're overburdening the stakeholders and not getting good comprehensive engagement across all initiatives. So I think that's probably the more important thing. Certainly if we needed additional resources for supporting it, and we don't have the stakeholder engagement, it's kind of not going anywhere still.
Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe that's reflected if we're not hearing from stakeholders saying, we want to run all of this at once, then, but I just want to be sensitive that, obviously these delays are costly and that we're thinking hard about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair Bornstein. Any other comments or questions in the room or from Chair Kanzioka? Seeing none. Going to go slow here just in case. Any last minute? All right. If we have public comments, Silas, can you check to see if there's anybody on our virtual meeting that would like to make a comment?
If you would like to make a comment, you can please press the raise hand icon on Zoom or #2 on the phone only line. At this time, we don't have any hands up in the comment queue.
Excellent. Thank you, Silas. With that, I'll turn to agenda item number 5 is our informational reports. And this is an opportunity if anyone on the board or governing body has questions as to the informational reports that were provided. Seeing none and seeing that Chair Kanzioka is shaking his head no, that we will move to our last agenda item is item number 6, which is future agenda items. And that is my role to inquire if there are any items you want noted for future agenda items. Again, seeing none. Going once, twice, and we may adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your time this afternoon, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Roger.